Welcome back, friend. Before we jump into profiles and understanding the profiles of the body graph, we need to have a basic understanding of the hexagram and the structure of the hexagram. So let's begin. The hexagram introduction here, what's really important is you see that each one of the gates has a hexagram structure. Each one of these hexagrams has 6 lines, and they provide us with a deeper aspect and understanding. And as we build layers on your particular human design, and then you get to use this information however you need to in your life, so that you are, at that place of self-mastery, self-awareness. It's important to know that there are layers, and this is the long game. This isn't a short game, this is the long game. So these hexagrams actually come from the I Ching, and this is one of the oldest surviving books on our planet. The hexagrams really are a pictogram of all human situations. What I love is that there is the story of creation written right into this body graph and these hexagrams. The 6 lines of the hexagram represent different stages or aspects of each situation. The yang lines, they are solid. So in here you'll notice that the very bottom line is a solid line. That is going to be the truth for this entire particular quarter. Now it's also the truth for this particular quarter. But then, as you see, these aspects represent a strong and active aspect of the hexagram, meaning not that the yang lines are weak, but these are more solid, you would say. They are more fixed. They are more maybe less receptive. Let's just put it that way. The yin lines are broken. They represent the receptivity. So these yin lines, if you see here, look at how this particular quarter here, all of the base lines of this particular quarter are receptive. There's this receptivity here. And I'm going to get into the quarters with you as well so that you can really conceptualize and understand that. But I wanted to just show you first the basic understanding that there are yin lines that are yang lines that are solid. Yang is more masculine. Yin is feminine, receptivity. And these aspects of each one of these lines provide a very deep level of nuance as each hexagram moves from the first line up to the 6th. So there's always this progression in every single one of the gates. Every single one of the gates start off with the first line. The first line is introspection. It's about feeling insecure, getting the details, becoming secure in its foundation, and becoming an authority once it is secure. It's an investigator. So within the Rave I Ching, if you have the Rave I Ching, if you don't, if you have the differentiation, the science of differentiation, basically it's the textbook that was written by Ra and Linda. Walk through each one of these lines. Walk through every single first line is the investigation, is the introspection of the hexagram. The second line is projection. It is natural. It's a hermit. There's this outward projection. It's unaware, and it is discriminating, meaning it's projecting its natural abilities out so that people can knock on the door and pull that natural ability out of them. But they're not just going to show up anywhere. People need to pull this information out. They're happy hermiting. They're happy being in their natural habitat and pulling back into themselves. Okay? They're also very unaware of how natural they actually are. The third line, adaptation. This is a mutation that takes place here in this third line. This is about trial and error. So this martyr is about trial and error. There's anarchy here. Trial, error, nobody being the authority over it. Adaptation, mutation, discovery. So the first three lines of every single hexagram are an internal process. It's an internal happening that's taking place in every single one of the gates. We need to have a solid foundation. We need to have this research department. And that's really what the first line does, is research. The second line isn't too interested in research. It's already the natural in it. But it is staying within self. It wants to, have this introspective application of self. So all three of these lines, are an internal process. Now the third line knows that there's something out there. However, it's still an internal process. The fourth line is about externalization. So now that we have this solid foundation, we've tested it, we've had this trial and error, we have this ability to project outwards as to what our action has showed us, and that investigation is, very detail oriented, and then we test it, we trial and error in the third line. So the externalization allows for that mutative energy to then become an influential externalization. So this is the opportunist, the friend, externalizing, and it is the network, influential, and it's one-tracked. So it is taking all of this introspection and it is moving it out into the world. So fourth lines are naturally externalizing, but they're externalizing to their network. Now take a look at the fifth line. The fifth line is universalization. This is the heretic. Universalizing. This projection inward from others, and they provide practical solutions. So the heretic takes all of this information and it says, okay, now we need to universalize this and provide all of these practical solutions to everybody, right? They want to go out and they want to reach not their network. They want to reach everyone. They want to reach all these new people. Now, of course, we drop back into strategy and authority. You're not just pushing this agenda. If you're a manifestor, you're being initiated by this agenda. Okay? If you are a generator, manifesting generator, you're responding to this universalization and these practical solutions. If you are a projector, you are invited to provide these practical solutions. And if you are a reflector, you're being asked or invited into those practical solutions and providing those to the people around you that are brand new, that are coming in. So the fifth line is a very interesting aspect, because what really happens is that's the end of the hexagram. That's where all the information lies. And we get here, and then we get to be the messenger. These fifth line beings are the messenger. Now the sixth line is the role model. It's observing this process. It is transitioning this hexagram to the next hexagram in the mandala. As I said, here's the mandala. So the 13.6 is already looking at the 49. Okay, it's looking to the next hexagram and the principles of the next hexagram. So it's building what it, listened to and heard, so that it can build on the principles. Now, the sixth line, this transition, this is also mutation. It's about a living example, and it is quite detached from the process. That's why we call sixth line beings aloof. They are an example of being of this Maya and not in the Maya. They're not investigating. They are not the messengers. They are a living example of the hexagram, but they're totally detached from that process, because they're standing on the shoreline. They're standing on that horizon saying, here's my transition point. Okay? Transitions. So that's the basics. Now let's just walk through so that we can kind of grasp this, and then you know how to just start to, build on your design. So now you understand your strategy and authority at a basic level. You understand each one of the centers at a basic level. Now it's starting to, build on those lines and understanding the lines and the basic understanding of these lines, so that as we walk through the profile and we start to jump into the circuitry, the gates, all of that, then you can start to really go, okay, now I get the basic of this, okay? And we can build each layer, each layer, each layer, each layer. So first lines represent the essence of the hexagram. As I had said, it's introspection, it's study, it's research, it's details. And it's looking inward, trying to find the basis of things. There's always going to be insecurity here, okay? First lines are inherently insecure, okay? And there is going to be a sense of fear here. So every first line throughout the entire I Ching, 1 to 64, the very first line of all of that is insecure. It needs to research that information of that hexagram. It's very self-involved. The investigation, out of insecurity. There's an insecurity there, so how can I become secure? How can I become the authority? And you become the authority by investigating the energy of the hexagram. So it needs to study, it needs to develop a solid foundation, and it becomes that authority through study. And it needs to stand on a solid foundation. So it is quite material. The first 3 hexagrams are materially oriented. And then it is also instinctive. It is insecure, as I said, and it becomes the authority. So in this particular body graph, this example that I brought forth, 60.1, the 60 is here. Again, you guys are going to learn all of this, but I just want you to be able to look at your body graph and go, oh, this is what I am here to investigate. So the 60th gate is limitation. The 60th gate brings an acceptance of limitation so that we can transcend. This particular being, through the assistance of Jupiter, and Jupiter is our laws, our own personal laws, this person is going to investigate its own laws about limitation and transcendence. This particular person is going to investigate the spiritual aspect or the illusionary aspect of grace within a group of people. How can I be open? When am I closed? Investigating the grace of social activity and the spiritual aspect of that grace. So again, this is how, you build and you build and you build your wisdom and your knowledge and your ability to share your intelligence with other people. So the second line is also very absorbed in its own natural process. It's here to be called out. As I said, somebody needs to knock on the door of the second line. It does not understand its own talent, has absolutely no idea how talented it is, and is not interested in study or investigation. It's an internal process. So, nervous about being an object of projection or expectation. That's why they hermit. But once the call is there, and their strategy and authority moves them, that's when their natural abilities can shine and bring such profound wisdom to people. It can also feel very inadequate. It's antisocial. It wants to hermit. It wants to be left alone. It's absorbed in itself. And it is waiting for the call. And it is very instinctive. Now you're going to understand this instinctive language when we walk through the profiling gates. So this particular being has one second line. Venus is our values, this is our love, and for this particular person, this second line here, this 45th gate, the 45th gate is the CEO, it's the figurehead, it's the queen, it's the king. It is also about education. So this particular being is going to be a natural educator based off of the values and the love that it brings to that process. But it needs to be called out. And also, it is in an undefined and open center. So it can be conditioned here and try to puke out education before being invited to do so. Or it can just wait, which is the healthiest thing, wait for that invitation to share its natural abilities, to be the figurehead, to be that educator. So now do you see how these layers begin to play around? So in your particular body graph, where's your second line? Do you have any second lines? Some people may not. Third line. Third line is this binary between the third and the fourth, and I'm going to discuss that a little more as we walk through the role profiling gates. So this expresses the movement from lower to upper. So this is like a staircase in between the second level of a house up to the third level of the house. There's this transitionary period, and it's an evolutionary line. It is not solid. So it's absorbed in its own process, but has more contact with the outside world than the first and second. So really, what happens is that third line beings need to be able to communicate with these fourth line beings so that the fourth line being can externalize all of the research and the natural abilities of the first and second hexagram. The first and second lines, sorry. So there's a trial and error theme. Many experiences, bumping into things in order to discover. There is a discovery process. So its purpose is adaptation and to discover the natural world. It must experience in order to understand. Very experiential, where the first line wants to investigate. The second line just has these natural abilities. The third line wants to, experiment with it. It wants to have experiences, wants to test it out through experience. Learns by experiencing what does not work. Can become pessimistic if it does not understand its process. And a martyr standing up for a principle can end up with the martyr complex. Why me? By learning through failure, it brings a new solution to the world. These people are also anarchists. So, breaking down what doesn't work so that the first and second lines can build what does work. Again, it's mutative, and there's an intuition here. It's very acoustic. It's very acoustic. Third line people are acoustic beings, and you're going to learn and understand this at a deeper level when we get to understanding this in the next module. So if we take a look at this being, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 third lines. So this particular body graph, the bitterness in this particular being is really profound, because as a projector, all of this stuff bumping in, all of this mutative energy designed for them to deliver this mutation, and all of this trial and error has provided this being with a massive amount of bitterness, because they want to perfect it. However, they're designed to experiment with it, and experiment with it based off of the overarching strategy and authority of waiting for that invitation and being recognized for their sensitivity to transmit this beautiful, beautiful awareness. So, we'll just take a look at a couple of these gates so that you can get an understanding of it. So 24.3 here, that's about that rationalizing, right? You bring down the knowing and you rationalize it. Now there's a trial and error process to the awareness piece here. But this being will try to rationalize and try to figure things out mentally instead of just waiting for of their holistic being. The intuitive understanding of when to share the rationalizing, is also a large part of a third line. The intuition to know when to share this alertness to patterns and transmit that information. If you're doing it out of turn, people are like, why are you telling me this? So these are the things, again, layers and layers and layers that we're playing with, you guys. So the fourth line is about externalizing this wisdom when the opportunity arises. So fourth lines are just naturally more transpersonal. Okay? They are moving into this transpersonal mutation. So 1, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, they've investigated, they've experimented, they've experienced, they have this natural ability. Now we get to externalize it to, first, our network. So whether that be friends and family that are within the network, that's what the fourth line does. So it's going to relate to the first line foundation, because basically what the fourth line is doing is just, providing this wisdom to the closest people in its life. It's fixed in its externalization without resistance. So it is designed to externalize. Will abdicate if there is resistance. So basically it will remove itself and, be alone in the group based off of resistance. If people aren't ready, there's been no invitation, no response, no initiation, nobody's asked, it will abdicate. It will, move away from that experience. So it exerts tremendous influence. So when people are ready for this externalization of wisdom, fourth lines are naturally influential. Naturally influential. It needs a stable network. So this is where opportunities come from. It suffers from people fatigue and needs time alone. Hence the reason a lot of times they will abdicate. They will go and they will remove themselves to be alone. Because people can be very fatiguing. And of course, depending on your type, can even be more fatiguing. So wants friendship as a basis of interaction, friendship before intimacy, and a very friendly line. So this network has to be built on friendship. Okay? And again, there's intuition here. Intuition is to know when to externalize. And the other keynote that is very important here is do not leave anything until you have a replacement. Meaning, don't leave a lover until you have a replacement. Don't leave a job until you have a replacement. Don't leave a friendship until you have a replacement. These people need to be able to externalize. So yes, they need time alone. However, they also need time to externalize through a very friendly network. So again, this particular person, we saw how the 22.1 is here to investigate the spirituality of gracefulness, but they're also designed to externalize this investigation of grace. Transpersonal. Again, this fifth line, most transpersonal quality. These are the people that are introducing the wisdom to people outside of the network, people outside of the family, people outside of the tribe. They are here to provide a message, that universalized message to those people. It carries this karma and will meet known forces, known as in this karmic activity. So there is a particular geometry that these fifth line beings are on, and they've been on that fifth line geometry. Their existences have been on this particular geometry. So there brings this karmic activity. They're heretic. They universalize something new. And other project that the fifth line will be a savior. So they're projected upon that they will be a savior, that they will provide that practical solution. And it possesses the power to attract attention. They are very seductive beings. Fifth lines are seducing these new people because they have to seduce them in order for them to, be attracted into listening to the universalization. Others are naturally open to fifth lines, giving them the ability to penetrate them. And again, what is your type? What is your auric field? So if you're a manifester versus penetrating, you're actually impacting. But if you're a generator or a projector, you are penetrating into the other person as a fifth line. And then if you're a reflector versus penetrating, you're sampling this other person. So timing is critical. Once they penetrate, they need to leave. Otherwise, they're subject to negative projection. So this heretic, basically, if they haven't provided the practical solution, they will be, hung at, the tribal square. They are designed, heretics are designed to get in and get out. They are designed to get in and get out. So the reputation is very important, and they can be very paranoid. It's healthy to be suspicious of the projection field. So, who's projecting onto you? Who is projecting what onto you? And be practical. Like, I either have the solution or I don't have the solution. And it needs to be, spoken. It needs to be provided to people. There is a taste for what message needs to be universalized. So here in this particular chart, we have the fifth line here in the 61. We also have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there's 8 fifth lines. And this particular fifth line, we're just going to, I'm not going to go over all of them, but just so that you realize. So 61 is all about this inner mystery. And the 61 is going to universalize the truth and transformation of Pluto. They will universalize the importance of inner truth, inner mystery, and being okay with the unknown. And they will have a taste for when to express that message. And again, this particular person is a projector. They are designed to wait to be recognized for this awareness so that they can universalize it. Again, layers here, you guys. So the sixth line is a very interesting piece of the hexagram. So it is not a part of the hexagram, but rather that transition line to the next hexagram, as I had indicated. So it's separate but connected. So for it to become an authority, for it to become a role model and an example of the hexagram, there is this objective administrator / authority. Has to be objective. 6 lines are designed to be objective. This isn't about a subjective application. This has nothing to do with you. This is about objectively taking all of the wisdom that has been brought forth from 1 to 5 in those lines, and then being that objective expression of it. Walking the talk, basically. They are going to be naturally aloof. naturally aloof. So there's a 3-phase development process that happens with 6-line beings. From the 3rd line phase to the 6th line phase, there is this pessimism to optimism. At the Chiron return, it is called off the roof, to re-enter into the living world as an example of itself. 6th line knows the difference between what can be trusted or not, and can be very influential, and is not healthy to be a hypocrite. So, 6th line beings, they start their very first 30 years as this trial and error process. So 6th line beings are not designed to be able to take the impact of the 3rd line process. The 3rd line process is very bumping into, okay? So then they are here to implement what they have learned in those first 30 years after taking time to test it out, experiment with it, and then from the ages of 30 to 50, using all that wisdom and building their life on that wisdom. And then at the age of 50, they become this ability to be the role model. So here's the trial and error process I went through. This is the implementation process that I went through. And now I get to be the role model. I get to be optimistic that everybody, has the ability to get to this optimistic, transitional place in their lives. Okay. So 6 lines, again, every 6 line in your body graph will have this, it's a transition period. So let's just look at the 60. So the 60 again is this limitation. So not only does this particular person need to investigate limitation, they will now be disciplined, because that's what Saturn does. It disciplines the transition of information. This aloofness around limitation and being able to transition through limitation. And this person will be disciplined to do so, to actually walk the talk of limitation and transcendence of limitation, and accepting that we all have limitations, and that through that acceptance we all get to transition into this beautiful transcendent being who is able to recognize its own self-reflected consciousness. So some of this may have been fairly high level for you. But again, I want you to just take each one of the lines. So take each one of the lines of your body graph. Write out, okay, so 24.3 is here to be trial and error. The 44.3 is here to be a trial and error mutative process, and so on and so forth, okay? Because you're not going to, unless you have the books, unless you have the information already, it is then to take the line values that, Ra created through the I Ching, and then build on that, okay? And we're going to do that as we get to the circuitry, as we get to the gates, and as we get to the lines. And of course, again, process work, process. So watch how this plays out in your particular body graph for every single one of these lines. Now what we're going to do is we're going to move into the profile. Okay, and the next module, we're going to really hone in on the overarching costume that is, your type and your costume that you wear that really provides a nuance to your purpose. All right, see you in the next module.